Well, everybody, welcome to the Greg Sterlace podcast on how to emotionally satisfy a woman. We're going to go around the table and everybody's going to introduce themselves. Let's go to my left.
Thanks.
You're
Kenny.
welcome.
Kenny.
I'm Paula.
Joel?
Can't hear Joel.
What's that?
Can't hear you. Headset plugged in?
It's not plugged in. That's
wait.
a speak.
Well,
Well, you don't have
is-
to be here.
This is
he still remains
top of the
Joel.
line
There's
video
like there's a
podcasting.
thing here that
But you got to plug the microphone.
Tom,
in.
can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Here,
Okay, so it's
give
Joel.
me the other
That
piece.
one. Yeah, you need a little in too.
Okay.
There you go.
Forgot to do this.
Where else?
Joel.
Yeah, I should have done. I thought you
Me,
knew.
I'm Greg.
I did,
Is
yeah.
Richard on camera or just audio?
Okay, so we have.
But
we have
you're
Richard
going to
on
speak though,
audio.
right?
If I'm motivated.
Well, you just said if I'm motivated. That's so you were motivated to say if I'm motivated. So Joel says he wants to say something about context, Beth, first. What's the context you want us to talk about?
Oh, no, because
About
before...
what your comments will be tonight. You said there'd be some
Oh, yeah, no. Well, we were actually... Richard was presenting a story about a man and wife from like a couple generations ago where there was deep miscommunication between the husband and the wife. The husband had attempted to take his son fishing, didn't know anything about fishing, and the wife kind of like called him out on it and made him feel consistently bad about not knowing how to fulfill the traditional role of a man. And we were talking about that as a springboard or like fodder for how you can bridge that, the understanding the differences between men and women. So
Well, what, didn't you say something about some mental health organization you're involved in that you want to say that would give a context for how your comments are coming out tonight?
yeah, well, I have a nonprofit, Education Training Center Incorporated, which is to address mental health distress in our community. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah,
That was it.
Thank you. And Beth, it's great that you're hosting because Tasha can't be here. She's in Boston, but you are the ultimate fill-in co-host. I mean, host, not co-host, host.
Well, those are big shoes to fill in.
Not well. I mean, yeah, but I mean, you
kind
can handle it.
Well-
You look lovely tonight.
Well, thank
right,
you very
Ken?
much, Ken.
Yes, she does.
Thank you, Ken. You're looking so...
Unbelievable.
With,
Tell him why you brought that up.
Oh, because
he was practicing.
before you got here, Beth, Ken was pressing, complimenting you before you were in here. He's sitting there staring at
Looking
an
at
empty
the
chair,
chair.
saying, "You look lovely tonight, Beth." Is that emotionally satisfying to know that someone's actually practicing their compliments before you're even here?
It was almost like a little metaphysical sort of
Well,
compliment.
then they brought up The Godfather with
Luca Brasi.
And I'm like, what the frig, man?
What a segue.
Well,
And of course, you've got one of your idolizers over there, Richard Wick, is on the show tonight. You can bring him in.
My
Beth.
amigo.
Ask him some questions about emotional satisfying of women. Come on, you must have something you can say to him about relationships and love and friendship and kindness.
Eventually I will, perhaps.
Yeah,
So-
later on.
I think we should follow up on what Joel talked about, like a relationship where the man was feeling insecure because the wife kept haranguing him about not being able to fulfill.
Yeah, I think women should be reasonable in the boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife situation and not harangue the man.
Well, but in that context, those old mores were so embedded, like the men had to know how to do shit, and the women had to know how to bake a pie, and if that didn't happen, there was disappointment, dissatisfaction. I know my sister, who is older than I am, she married somebody who was a teacher, and he didn't know how to do that stuff, and I know that it caused her grief because she expected that the man would be able to do that stuff. So
Could she bake a pie?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
She could fulfill the things that she thought a woman's role, but that's it. They're trying to fulfill a role that's kind of given to you by society or by your parents, who are, turns out, just as messed up as we are, because that's how they messed us up, right?
Well, I mean, to me, it points to the very nature of the problem with expectation.
Absolutely.
Because if you think about it, like if you're in partnership, there are things that one partner, gifts, talents, abilities, passions, that one and the other partner bring together, and if there's genuine communication and a genuine, deep spiritual connection, you'll work all that stuff out. But if you're entering into marriage because you think you have to, and this person's going to do this because they're you're told and they're told that that's what they're going to do, you got a problem. Because you're not working with what is organically, inherently there. You're working with some delusional belief of what you think should be there.
Do you think that can be fixed if people get married for the wrong reasons? Do you think that through
I mean, yeah.
through counseling that if they became accepting of the other person for what they are, because
Yeah.
that's the crux.
It is, but I would say this for sure, Paula, that it's self-defined. Like the couple has to define the limits and parameters of what they're willing to give and how they're willing to give it for themselves. Like there's no outside answer to that. Like if I were to say yes or no, it'd
Yeah.
be stupid and a waste of time. People have to know themselves in relationship, themselves and what they bring in relationship and what that all means. Because there is for me in a spiritual or metaphysical sense, there is integrity, structure, and function to every relationship. Every dynamic has its own integrity, its own structure, and its own function. And if you don't know that, that still operates. So you may be playing baseball on a field that doesn't exist. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. I
But
do
if
know what you mean.
the integrity, structure, and function, if you know yourself and you know your partner and they know themselves, then you know the playing field, that's all workable. Yeah.
Oh, I can cure any couple. If they just give me 4 sessions, I can cure any couple because I've learned so much from you over the years, last 29 years.
We work together because we both have the same kind of damage, so we try to please each
We
other.
both
and
have the
we
same
know-
amount of shame and trauma.
And we know each other so well. We were friends for years. I knew what to expect out of you. You
Freak.
knew what to expect out of me.
Freak.
And in the meantime, since we've been together, we have both tried to improve so we can be a better partner. But that doesn't happen with everyone.
I'm now the ultimate partner, the ultimate trophy husband.
Trophy husband, he's calling himself these days.
Can you see that, Beth? I'm the ultimate trophy husband?
And author of multiple
And author
books.
of multiple books, right. And
Director of films.
so do you feel like you can ask Richard something about relationships and love and kindness and caring now? Or have you
Don't
thought it
put
over?
him on the spot.
No, nothing bad, nothing putting on the spot. Just like there must be something you learned from your friendship with Richard over the years you can talk to him about on this show. That's what we're all here about, friendships and relationships and kindness and love.
Yeah.
Or
Well,
am I putting you on too much on the spot by saying that again the second time?
I was
He's your
thinking-
close friend, Richard Wicca, over there.
I know. But I first want to go over to Joel, though.
Okay.
And because I'm thinking
You're the host.
that the wife in that story may not have really had any serious understanding of how her husband grew up and what he experienced. Maybe he just didn't have that role model himself.
That could be. I mean, it's interesting that you go to what the husband lacks and not the lack of respect found in the wife. I mean, she's leveraging what he didn't do when he tried to do something good for his kid, and she's utilizing that to make him feel badly. And that, when you see a behavior that you want to reinforce that positively. And her making fun of him because he didn't know how to fish when he's trying to do something with his son. I mean, that doesn't fall on the husband's area that you want to look at. It falls on the wife's lack of respect. What I would assume is not just for the husband, but her own self-worth. She's projecting onto him her own lack of self-worth. That's how I
agree
understand
with that. And,
Yeah.
and the thing is,
Or she feels less-
if she is modeling what her mother did with her father, that's why you always have to look at the parents of the people that you're getting involved with, because those are the people that raised those kids. And they're going to have, I mean, even if they rebelled and rejected it, there's going to be something there that they carry with them that's going to be painful for, it's not, you're marrying the parents as
Yeah.
well, and
Yeah.
and the parents are the
Sorry
ones
for you.
who, well, the parents are the ones who mold the kid.
Yeah.
And there's another thing. Just because, now I had to figure this out for myself when I was in my 20s. I was dating someone who had a lot of baggage. His father had been in prison. His mother kept trying to kill herself. She was, it was a mess of a family. And I always gave him the benefit of the doubt because of this trauma that he lived through. And then one day I realized, wait a minute, just because I understand why he's an asshole, it doesn't mean I have to put up with it.
No, you never do. You can always, you can
Well,
always jettison yourself.
I was young and I loved him. I
Right, you
thought
still jettison yourself when you realize it's a toxic situation.
Then I thought to myself, why do I love him because I think he needs me. In fact, he used to say that if I broke up with him, there's nobody else in the world. I don't know what I'll do. I'll die without you. Blah 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 blah.
But the neediness is not always a good reason to keep the relationship going.
No, but he wasn't like that normally. He was just like that when I broke up with him.
Right. Well, Richard, you're the one who came up with this story about the fishing. And what does that mean to you? This guy being insulted by his wife because he couldn't fish and couldn't be a real man.
Is my mic on? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The subject we were discussing, see, he came over yesterday. He thought the summer bonfire was yesterday.
Okay.
I said, no, it's a week from, it's going to be next Friday. So as long as he was here, he's a fantastic conversationalist. So him and his sister were here, and they were talking about things that have affected the way they see the world. That's a big topic of his. What has made me see the world the way I see the world? And then he started talking about experiences with his parents. Like, for example, his mother had a saying, whenever something was going to be done and it looked difficult, the mother would say, let's not do it and say that we did. And so he says that to this day, so now he's 60 years old, to this day, he finds himself saying that to himself when he's faced with a difficult task. And he said he's trying to break himself out of that mold. But the question is how do you break yourself away from your history?
Well, I'll tell you how you do it. You think logically, and then you put the past behind you because it's not happening anymore. And I've done it recently. I've had a lot of issues, and I realized, well, I could have been happy my entire life, and I could have been had everything going my way my whole life, and I could have had great self-esteem my whole life. So that's why I just say that to myself, that I had great self-esteem, I had everything go my way, and I felt great all this time. And that leaves me just with this great moment with everybody here in the room. This great moment where we're discussing feelings and sex and love and kindness and friendship. And as long as you tell yourself you had a beautiful life because you've experienced life, no matter how painful it was, then you can be in the moment here with your friends, if you're in a situation like this, and just enjoy yourself. It's all logic to create the emotion. To take out the sting of trauma or
logic works on some things, but when your lizard brain kicks in, it becomes more difficult, and that's what I'm dealing with right now.
Right.
So I know my mother had told me something all my life. You never finish anything. Well, I was exploring things as a teenager. So yes, maybe I started something and I didn't pursue it to the end. But I carried that with me for 30 years, and I would say that to myself.
Yeah.
You never finish. But I always finished everything.
Yeah.
Even though I always finished it, I had that belief about myself.
Sure.
And it's hard. Most people can't define their future by anything but what they've experienced in their past.
Yeah.
So to reach out like that, that's hard. That's a real tricky thing. But by affirmations and by, maybe you should try to put the opposite of that in. If it's hard, it's a challenge.
Yeah.
Well, Joel, did you ever try to emotionally satisfy a woman in any way?
What's your question when you're asking?
Are there ways that you try to emotionally satisfy women in your life? Because that's what this show is about.
No, I know, but I'm trying to break it down in ways that are less specific and more to enter into like a topic you want to enter into it generally. And I think what you're asking is like, have I learned to communicate effectively, intimately with women or in intimacy? I mean, the fundamental question here is like, how does one communicate effectively in intimacy, with sex being a form of communication and intimacy, relationship, affection, gifts, time spent, marriage, all these things are relationship or communication with intimacy. And so, yeah, I've spent a life, and I think the way that we learn how to do that and what we have to work with is our childhood. Like, how did I learn how to communicate in intimacy? What is more intimate than our family system? And I'm not talking about sexually necessarily, but what is intimacy? Intimacy is just super closeness, and our family system represents the ways in which we understand super closeness. And so, yeah, I learned through my own family how to communicate effectively in intimacy. Yeah.
By having a sister, did that help you?
Totally. And, I had a very polarized family system where I had this very wonderful, gentle Jewish father. He was like the most gentle. My mother hated him because she was so jealous of him. She'd call him the candy man. He was just so loving and never raised his voice, his hand to us ever in my entire childhood. And my mother was a truck driver, meaning hard and just difficult. She was challenging, violent, difficult. And so in that system, I learned the far-reaching range of the ways in which people can move through the world.
Yeah, but what ways nowadays would you utilize to emotionally satisfy a woman?
So it's a great question, because I think upon reflecting for my own self, my own experience, what worked and what didn't, I took what worked from my mom and what worked from my dad and what I didn't need from my father and what I didn't need from my mother. There are no accidents. You're not born into some family system randomly. And we can talk about the whole, if you want to talk about intimacy and relationship between men and women or between people, the fundamental element that must be spoken about is spirituality. I mean, because without that understanding, without the energetic element, you're going to emotionally satisfy a woman. What is that? That's spirituality, And so how you define spirituality will differ for each one here. But really, what you want to do is you just want to come from your deepest place of truth or vulnerability or what is true for you in intimacy and articulate that effectively so it's understood in the other. I mean, that's how you emotionally satisfy your partner, or a man emotionally satisfies a woman, as I understand it. I don't know, Beth and Paul, if you agree.
I was just thinking that you probably have to be able to emotionally satisfy yourself before you can emotionally satisfy somebody else.
Yeah, I didn't, right. So until I resolved a lot of the unresolved issues in childhood that I had, I was angry, I was hurtful, manipulative, agendaed, wanting certain outcomes for myself that weren't organic in the relationship, but I wanted that because I was wounded and need to work through something. But you can work through all that. I had a very effective therapist who taught me that there's this tendency to throw the term narcissism around, right? Like,
Yeah.
He's a narcissist, she's a narcissist. And she told me something so freeing, because I had moved through a narcissistic phase at a certain point in my life. And she's like, narcissism doesn't necessarily mean that you're a narcissist. It's a phase that you can go through, that we all go through developmentally when we're children. We need in our 2s and 3s to become the center of everything, because we were coming from a place where we were everything. And as we individuate in the body, there's an element of narcissism in that. And if you don't move through that in ways that are supported and nurtured, you don't move out of it. So you're stuck in that narcissistic phase. Many people are stuck in that narcissistic phase. But what does happen is, with nurturance and support and the right work on yourself, you can move through that. Anyone can move through that.
It's also a result of trauma. Because if you pretend that you are the greatest, you don't necessarily believe that in your heart. What you're doing is you're trying to you want to make others look bad to make yourself look good.
Yeah.
And in that case, that becomes, although that's the codependent relationships that this Tim Reichman, what do I think? Right, I forgot what I said. Fleischman. Yeah, I think that's what his name is. He talks about, but but there are situations where a child is never made to feel like they have any value.
I mean,
Yeah.
if I could say from what I see, many or most of the world has some element of that,
Yeah.
not a full nurturance of health. You know,
Yeah, so-
we're all working through that. Rumi, actually, the poet Rumi, the Persian poet Rumi, the Sufi poet Rumi says,
Yeah.
it is a world full of hurt children. I mean, that's an interesting observation.
And the thing is, if you don't learn how to bond, it's really hard to learn
Yeah.
after the fact.
Yeah.
You know, it is. I mean, it becomes torturous
Yeah.
to get that close to somebody
Yeah.
to let them know you, because obviously you're worthless because your parents didn't give you that.
Right. Well, yeah.
So, I mean, when I had my daughter, I thought, oh, a new person that doesn't know me. So she's going to like me because she doesn't know me.
Yeah.
You know, and that put a lot of pressure on her.
Yeah.
She got to know you probably better than you thought that she was going to
Well,
get to know
and
you.
I moved away from my family. I moved away to find out who I was, because all I've been told all my life is these things that I was, you know, and how can you have a relationship? How can you even know what it means to be emotionally satisfied when you don't even know what you want?
Does it come down to how to emotionally satisfy a woman? Maybe it's on the parents to instill the value of the person themselves so that they can grow up and be able to satisfy themselves emotionally, and then be able to, like that ripple effect, be able
It's
to
generational, though.
Yeah.
It's generational. You know, my mother did not have good parenting. Her mother did not have good parenting. You know, how you can't you if you don't have those tools in your toolbox, you can't do it.
right.
And you know, so I tried to read books and stuff to understand what I was supposed to be doing, but I didn't have those tools from my mother.
Greg, that could be your next book, a parenting book.
Oh boy, that
Oh boy! Oh Christ, Beth! I don't know if I can handle that. I'm so happy now. I don't know if I want to think about my parents. I mean, they're such a drag.
no, don't think about your
They're
parents.
drag city.
Well,
I guess I can think about the ideal parents who might,
Exactly.
unlike my
Yes.
parents, and they write a book about that, how to be an ideal parent, to emotionally satisfy your children, and therefore they can emotionally satisfy their partner
Well,
later.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's a convoluted title, but you're right. I can
Okay.
do that
Yeah,
as long as I'm doing it from the. Don't be like Pat and Jim,
Yeah.
my parents, but be unlike them.
Well, that's like I was talking about in the presentation. I was talking about the Cleavers, and I'm like, the thing that impressed me most about the Cleavers was that the kids sat down at the table and talked to their parents, and they listened to them. What the fuck?
Crazy.
You know, it never occurred to me that a young kid could sit down at the table with their parents and talk.
Oh, because your parents treat you like you're nothing because you're a kid.
I was a dog.
You're a dog.
Basically, you
You're
know,
basically a
go
dog
outside.
who could speak English. I can speak English.
So there was no sitting at the table?
No, we sat at the table for dinner. We didn't talk.
Okay.
No, they were just make sure those kids.
Yeah.
And if the kids did say anything, it was just like it's a dog talking. It's
Like
a dog barking.
Fly.
You know,
Yapping.
children should be seen and not heard.
Yeah.
I don't know
I
if
grew up
Richard,
that
did
way.
you have that? Did you have that in your house?
I want to mention something about that.
This
Okay,
is his
go-
house.
go
We're in it
ahead.
right now.
Okay, you mentioned Leave It to Beaver, but
Yeah.
remember the TV show Father Knows Best?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you know, there's these fan conventions.
Uh-huh.
The kid from Father Knows Best has been invited to a lot of conventions to come and give a talk. You know what he says when he starts off every talk? I'm sorry I gave the people of America such an unrealistic expectation of what family life is like.
Wow.
That's a shame that he takes it upon himself. He just was a kid who had a job.
Yeah, he's probably
Right.
supporting his family.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just like Ronnie Howard was kicking into his parents' coffers, from Andy Griffith Show.
Yeah.
All of those sitcoms were a bunch of bullshit. You know?
So Leave It to
But
Beaver
there
wasn't real,
are
Beth?
there are people
Leave It to Beaver wasn't real.
who
The
talk
Partridge
to.
Family?
Do you know? I'll tell you something.
Oh, they had a dead
There
father.
are people that live
was-
next door to me. These people are moving, and I'm so sad. They raised the two kids there. the wife, the husband, the father moved there from Michigan to help raise those kids because the woman was in medical school.
You mean the grandfather or the father?
The grandfather.
Okay.
The father of the girl.
Right.
So, all right, they're all together in this house. She got a job now as a doctor. That's why they're moving. She's going to Syracuse. The boy, the little boy, he was the cutest thing, but he screamed like a banshee. He was just a screamer. I never heard those people raise their voice to that child. They would talk low to him. They'd soothe him, and they would they wouldn't give him candy to shut him up. They would sit down with him and they would nurture him. And I asked the guy if he would adopt me. He's my age.
Generational homes is a thing that we don't see a lot
I
anymore.
love these people so much.
Yeah, we don't.
Never
It's faded out.
Yeah, I've never seen anyone so kind in my life.
Beth, I think with all due caution, we should probably involve Ken in the conversation.
Oh, I'm just listening.
Yeah, well,
Don't worry about me.
Ken's
over
got
there-
a
he's over there
brain
all
and a
alone.
mouth. I don't need to
Yeah.
poke him, do I?
Yeah, cattle prod would help. I think you should get one next
If you
time.
do the cattle prodding of him right now, Beth, that would help. You know,
Yeah.
Get inside Ken's mind for a second here. Ask him what his feelings are about the situation.
Ken, how do you feel about the situation?
Yeah. How do you feel?
I'm the youngest of four. My parents sucked. Period. A lot of emotional, mental, and mental, physical abuse, and you just think it's a part of life,
Right.
You know, because that's just who they are. And oh man, shit, or you think you're always in trouble. It's always your fault.
You deserved it? Did you ever have that thought? Like,
Oh yeah, well eventually. I mean, when you find yourself in your room crying all the goddamn time, like every day, it's
Yeah.
like, Jesus Christ, I can't do anything. But I mean, my father worked 3 jobs because she had to live up to her other siblings, and she was the stay-at-home mom because there was 4 of us or whatever. I get that, but I mean, I don't think both parents should discipline a kid. I mean, that's just me.
Do you think that? But how did you get to be the kind of guy who is so conscientious
Oh man,
about?
it took a long.
I mean, you are.
Uh-huh.
You're a very conscientious partner.
When I don't know if you guys remember the Incredible Hulk, Bill Bixby.
Yeah,
Lou
sure. From the
Ferrigno.
70s.
I dated him.
You
No,
did?
no, I'm kidding.
Holy shit! You must have a lot of
Bill
his
or-
shirts laying around.
Bill or Lou?
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
So I'm watching it, you know, as a kid, superhero, that type of stuff. And there's this one episode. It's called A Child in Need. That's where the father's an alcoholic, which my father is. And the kid used to get his ass kicked. He had shit, you know, well, he had marks and stuff. I didn't have that, but hell, I might as well have.
Get emotional marks.
And
Yeah.
he used to go to school. Oh, I fell down. I did this. I did that. I'm like, wow, this is an interesting program. And then as the show went on, and Bill Bixby had his little, what he thought was going on. And then when the father got pissed off or whatever and would tell the kid to do something, and then he got scared because he's raising his voice, they would do a cut scene. And they would show his father's father
Oh,
doing the
very
same thing to
Oh,
him.
right. It's going through the generations.
And when that happened, I was like, oh shit, there's a lesson here. And I was young when I saw this friggin' program. Was it 80 when it came out or something? I'm like,
So
that makes sense.
I'm assuming Bill Bixby got upset about this jerky father.
Oh yeah, he
came
ripped
to
through-
Hulk and beat him up.
He,
Is that what?
he came through the house and said,
At the ending,
I
the
need
Hulk, the Hulk,
over here.
Hulk smash.
Over here, I need you. You know.
Wow.
And but there was a lot of stuff in that I don't
Psychological.
know, I don't know
very
why.
advanced.
I don't
for-
know why it
yeah,
affected me, but
because you were experiencing that
and
kind of
and
stuff.
there was no love in the family. They didn't tell you, and they didn't like hug you. None of that
You mean
shit.
your family?
Nothing. Zero.
No, 0.
Yeah,
you're-
it's funny, Ken, because I take, there are certain shows that I took lessons like that from where I was like, holy shit. You know, like television could be a lot of things, but one of the things it can do is definitely
There's a
teach
story there,
teach us important things sometimes, yeah.
and
I agree.
teach
but
us morals.
later on, like when Elvis came into my life. It wasn't until he died.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's
And how did
he
how
died in
did
'77,
So,
then he noticed him.
now,
yeah.
back when I was in like, I think 6th or 7th grade at St. Andrews,
Right.
I was actually working, printing,
Right.
7 days a week, holidays. Well, I mean, obviously when we were at school, I would go in when it was dark, come home when it was dark, 11, 12 o'clock, just to get the fucking job done.
Right.
And that's all they knew. There was no playtime, no time with anybody. And it's all, and I'm at work, 77. I'm running some job, and all of a sudden, the news comes out. Oh, the king of rock and roll died. Blah 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 blah. And I'm like, who the hell's he?
right?
I never heard of him. Never heard of his name. Never heard of his music, and I didn't know nothing. So I'm running my job, and they're playing his music, and something in his music, like reached in
Right. Connected with you.
and brought out like when the Grinch is grabbing onto the thing and he's got like nothing and it just blows up.
yeah.
And that's what happened. I was like, well, who the fuck is this guy?
Right.
So I got done early with work, and I was riding my bike at the time. I got home, nobody there. Turn on the TV, Irv's on there, and he's talking about it the whole time. I'm sitting in front of the TV, and by the end of the newscast, I'm crying, literally bawling. I
Wow.
had a shiver go up my spine, the hair on my friggin' neck rose. I was like, what the hell am I crying about this guy for? Who the hell's he?
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't even know
But
who he
then,
is.
you know, like you said, like when all that was going on in
Yeah,
there,
yeah,
It brought that out.
I didn't realize it.
yeah.
And that's when I just
And because Elvis,
bonded with it.
because Elvis has nice romantic music a lot of times. Did that make you the
I don't know,
romantic
just
you
the
are
way,
today?
just the way he
Because you're a
sang.
very romantic guy. You know,
Yeah, you are. You're
very romantic. In fact, you wouldn't think it to look at him, but he's Mr. Romance.
Oh, I know that.
Oh, okay.
So now when I got a little older,
I can tell.
later in my 20s,
tell.
30s,
40s.
no, I'm
Just
just
20s and
it's just a
30s.
story.
Yeah.
I went on a crusade, my own little, I went to my mother had, brothers and sisters. So I would go over to their house. Hey, how you doing? I said, I just got a question. What was it like growing up with grandma and grandpa, your parents? I mean,
That's
Yeah.
a great thing.
And they
Great.
and they were like, well, what do you mean? I says, I mean, did they ever tell you they loved you or hugged you? No, but we knew. What the fuck does that even mean? Are you stupid? But they all
let you live
they all
under the
said the
roof.
same thing.
Yeah.
It was just I was like,
Yeah, because they were in denial.
so my thing was, why would you get married if you don't have those essentials?
or
Right.
Because you're not breaking the chain. You're dragging it to the next new relationship.
did you say that? You probably made you really popular if you said that to him.
No. I don't know who I said it to. I think it was my mother's youngest sister, Jeannie. And I was like, why the hell would you have a fucking marriage and bring that shit into a new friggin'
Because
family?
everyone thought
like,
they had
break
to
the
get
chain.
married. Everyone thought they had to get married. It was a thing. You got out of high school and you got married. That's what my sisters did.
Well.
I looked at their relationships and I thought, what? Sorry if you're watching.
Jim!
Yeah, I can't, but I can't, I didn't want that, but I always wanted that intimacy piece that we were
Yeah,
talking about, that connection. And no, the guys I was picking because I was damaged with a narcissistic type,
Yeah.
and they didn't know how to do that, and they didn't want to.
No, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, because I mean, to summarize what I'm understanding about today's conversation is just, the topic is what? How to emotionally satisfy a woman?
Yeah, in a relationship. Yeah.
It really, for me, it fundamentally comes down to this, just these two words, like, know thyself. Like, as you know yourself, there's something in us that not just needs, but is able to gently and genuinely, deeply connect with people once we've cleared all the crap in our life. But so many of us haven't cleared the crap in our life. And so as you work on yourself day in and day out, week after week, month after month, year after year, a little bit, I've come to a place now where I really feel like I know myself well enough. And I have successful communications and intimacy and in conversation and friendships and relationship. And I think the most successful, the deepest communications are always with those people who've taken time to really look at who am I and what do I want, what do I value, what is important to me, what is my true authentic voice. I mean, these are questions that we don't even ever ask
You
ourselves
don't
or
even
know
know
to.
those. There are questions
but
like
there
that.
are answers to those things that
Yeah.
we just don't even know to ask the question.
You know, the first time I went to therapy when I was right after my daughter was born, I told him everything everybody wanted. My sisters want me to stay married because, you know, now for the first time they're relating to me and they're nice to me. My mother would have a nervous breakdown if I left him with the baby. Everybody wants this for me, and he looked at me and he's like, "What do you want?" And I didn't know. I cried so hard for like an hour. The whole thing. I just cried.
Is
Be-
that just to break that down though, Paul? Think about it. All he asked you is, "What do you
I
want?"
didn't know that was an option.
Right.
And what did you? You cried. What were you crying about?
I was crying because I had never considered that that my opinion mattered.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
like grief over
Yeah.
realizing.
Yeah, you mean since I was because I was only 20, but since I've been born, that's been an option.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You
It's,
didn't know.
I know, and I did it, and you know, just becoming intimate, and even in friendships, I struggled, you know. And who was my one friend that I was intimate with was my friend Gloria,
Yeah.
and she's from a similar background
Yeah.
to mine, and instead of being, I became numb, and
Yeah.
she became super sensitive,
Yeah.
but we had the same thing
right.
going on.
I mean, isn't that how the yin and yang always?
You know, and
seem
I
to
tell
find one
people,
another?
I tell people all the time, don't worry about it. I'm not that sensitive. And then they look at me and I say, it's because I'm damaged. It's not because I'm strong. It's because I'm damaged.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, but it's true. You know,
Yeah.
and developing intimate relationships was really hard because that means that person has to know who you are, and you don't want to show that person.
Yeah, it's scary as
Yeah.
fuck, right? It's scary, and
Yeah.
not only that. Like, so if you're wondering about how to emotionally satisfy a woman, how to take the first steps, develop friendships where you begin to test what intimacy is, what vulnerability.
That's what I say in the book.
Yeah.
That's genius. I totally agree with you on my own genius.
Greg,
Oh, Joel.
we're twinsies. We're twinsies.
We're very similar. Great minds think alike.
Twinsies, yeah.
Yeah.
How about the good news that it's never too late? To,
Oh, never.
you
It's never
know?
too late to have a good relationship.
Right, and to be able to be vulnerable. You don't have to always have walls up. I grew up in a family too where there was no "I love you," there was no hugs, there was none of that stuff. You knew that you were loved because you were in the house. You got to go
Nah,
on
They
Never
fed you.
happens.
They fed you.
Like, you know,
Nah.
yeah, no, it was. We knew that we were loved, but it's my parents are in their late 80s, and it's only like in the last couple years that my mom has started to say "I love you."
Oh,
She doesn't say it all the time, but when she says it, it's like a big humdinger. You're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I think I'm gonna cry."
My
or-
mother was almost dead before she started. She was in a nursing home, and literally she was
She was
dying.
half dead.
And she said to me, she said, "I'm sorry about what I did, and I love you." And it was bizarre, you know. And I was still so angry that I didn't say it, but I thought too little, too late.
I'm still waiting for my mother to say it.
And because when I
I'm
brought
59.
Greg, when I brought Greg over to tell my mother that we were getting married, she grabbed his shirt and she said, "Don't do anything foolish."
What love, what caring from my
What,
mother.
was she being
No.
dramatic?
No.
and-
Well, dramatic, but not,
Dramatic.
not
Polish
funny.
cleaning lady
But not,
funny?
wasn't-
not
or-
funny, though, no.
No, she was
Just dramatic.
She was warning him.
My mother about turned nice finally when she
Oh,
she
she's
lost
because
her
she has
mind.
dementia.
She got she has
she's so
dementia,
nice
and
now.
so she spent 80 years of being a total bitch and having lots of angst and pain inside, and a lot of trauma and treating everyone like dirt and cold. And then she got dementia. Now she's warm and fuzzy, but she still hasn't said "I love you" to me.
Well, maybe it's.
Jesus Christ!
Pull
What
up
did
a
I do?
sign.
Is it
Pull up your
possible
cue
that
card.
because she's been, her mind has released her from constant
Yes,
thought
it's
Yeah,
that
yes.
she
definitely.
ruminated over
Yes.
and
Yes.
failure in
Yes.
herself?
Yes.
So what? I mean, it's while it's not
she is-
ideal for you,
yeah.
perhaps
No.
it's still a gift that she's
It's
able
not
to
a
do
gift.
that.
It's a gift like a pair of socks. It's like,
What if it's Hanukkah and it's 7 pairs of socks?
oh yeah, well if it's like 8 days or I don't know. I mean, I just
Whenever I would get my birthday card,
right. April
or
4th,
Christmas gift,
December 25th.
that is the only place I ever saw love mom and dad.
Oh.
That's it.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
They never
oh, you only love me when you're giving me shit. That's great.
Well, that's,
But it doesn't tell you what it is.
Yeah, you know what's interesting about that, Ken, is that I think that if we look at it like what we didn't get, they just didn't know how. They just didn't know
Oh, it's-
how.
Yeah, after I
They
did
didn't
my
have the
little-
language, the framework, the ability, the confidence.
Right.
They felt so uncertain about themselves that they couldn't even say that to the people that were most important to them.
that's why now that I'm certain about myself, I'm spreading love and peace more than ever
Well,
before.
my mother would tell me she loved me, but only if it came along with, even though you're overweight.
Oh fuck!
A little caveat after I love
even
you.
even though you have a bad temper.
That reminds me of
even though-
something.
Yeah.
My brother Dean, who's a total jerk, he said to me, I want to keep knowing you despite the way you are, Greg." I'm like, oh,
Wow.
Dean, that's so nice
Damn.
of you.
That's more of a statement
Right.
about Dean, though.
It is, but
Despite
it just
the way
reminded me
he
that when
is.
she said that,
Yeah.
it reminded me that statement that Dean made to me. I was like, great. So that was my last straw with him. That was many years ago, and I was like, okay, he wants, despite the way I am.
Yeah. It's always good to and it's so crazy because when you become a parent, you try to undo the mistakes that your parents did, but then you end up doing your own mistakes because you don't have those tools
Those
to,
skills,
to
yeah.
do. And I'm watching this, and I keep texting my daughter, "I really messed you up," and she keeps texting back, "No, you didn't. I really messed you up. No, you didn't." But I mean I can see in her some of the damage that I did inadvertently inflicted on her.
Les, you were saying it's a spiritual journey, though, too.
Yeah.
And we came here to help others with their spiritual journeys, too, perhaps.
And
Yeah, but what do you-
part of that, if I could just say this, because I was thinking about this, part of helping others with their spiritual journey is this, that we can get into this, and I'm going to lose a lot of you here, but like there are mystical elements where the soul, the journey of the soul, the Bhagavad Gita, Judaism, Kabbalah, Islam, all talk about the transmigration of the soul through the ocean of birth and death. We live a multiplicity of lives, and we plan these lifetimes out before we incarnate, so that if I have an enormous amount of suffering, which I've had an enormous amount of suffering, I may have very well agreed to take on this suffering to benefit others, that I could make sense out of it, and then benefit others with what I've learned. I mean, that's not beyond the realm of possibility or plausibility.
Yeah.
But the thing I wanted to say to you, Paula, is that one of the things that family does not often recognize, if it is somewhat healthy, is the resilience of a human being. Like, we often underestimate how resilient
Oh, I'm surprised I'm not dead.
you and your daughter. But I'm
Yeah.
also saying,
It's
like,
like- yeah.
maybe you did do not things perfectly, and yet those are her own lessons to work through.
I know.
I mean, you can't fix
that's
that
why
for.
I'm trying to
but
get
there's
her
also-
to watch the guy.
But there's no mistake. There's no accident. That
Yeah.
this is designed and a part of the play. You know.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you've been reincarnated, Beth?
Absolutely.
Really? Absolutely. So
Yeah.
you thought there was previous lives, like Shirley MacLaine said she had previous lives, that kind of thing?
I do.
Wow.
I
do you,
do too.
Do you remember
I
them?
do too, yeah.
Absolutely.
Do you remember them?
There's probably I think I definitely had some sort of French background, like maybe I was in Paris at some point.
Wow.
Because even as a little kid, before there was French immersion in Canada, I would walk our dog and I would pretend to speak French to it. It was total mock French, but I knew bonjour and shit like that.
Yeah.
But I would talk like that, and there's just different things. There's music. We went to a concert at Seton Hall for the massive Opus 95 pipe organ.
Oh.
And I got totally transported while I was there. I felt the whole, wow, I can just imagine how
Yeah.
wonderful it must have been
Yeah.
to come to this piece of entertainment, and
When there was so little
yeah,
entertainment.
and so I definitely think so.
Wow, that's trippy. And
Yeah.
and what's your definition of spirituality?
Oh,
Do you have a definition of that, or it's just general?
I think it's just a feeling for me right now.
You know, it's interesting because I have a podcast about, you know, Richard has been a mentor to so many people, and he's so understated, and he does not tell you how widely his influence is felt in this community and beyond. But he started me in 2007 with Unraveling Religion. He asked me if I wanted to do a podcast. Initially, I was like, no. And then I thought about it. Unraveling Religion was born. I just saw it's like 16 or 17 years that I've been doing it.
Wow.
But in that examination of Unraveling Religion, which is about spirituality, I've come to this very simple definition of care.
Yeah,
If you care, that is spirituality.
I like that.
Yeah.
I do like that.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like it's interconnectedness. It's like knowing that you are connected to every other living
Right.
thing. on
Because
Earth.
that's what's true, and it's hidden from us. It's
I-
veiled from us. Yeah.
Did I tell you the time that I had a vision about? I thought it was a psychotic break.
yeah.
I told you about that. Yeah.
Well, those often overlap, and
Yeah.
that's not a joke.
Yeah. No. Yeah. So I walked outside and I saw halos around everyone's head,
Yep.
and those halos were connected by a ray of light.
Yep.
And I
You did not tell me this, by the way.
Oh,
but
and
but if I could just say
Yeah.
this real quick, that's a kind of spiritual awakening. It's an enhancement of your spiritual vision.
I was reading a couple different things at the same time.
Yeah.
And so when I walked off the curb and I saw this, my first thing was, oh my God, it's all one thing.
Yep.
And then my second thought was, I better not tell anybody about this because they're going to think I'm nuts.
And you're not wrong.
And so I didn't. But then I read Thomas Merton's The Mountain, the thing, at the mountaintop or whatever it's
Yeah.
called. And he had the same exact thing happen to him. Exactly. That's
Yeah.
why he became a monk.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, I'm in good company.
You are.
But I, you know
It's a-
what?
it's
I
a
did.
calling.
It
It's a
wasn't.
calling.
But I don't feel that I felt it as a calling to change the way I related to people.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel any religious calling for that. I just felt like this. Wow, we are freaking all one thing.
What's amazing about that experience is that there's a tremendous relief that I am not alone. That right?
That was true. I did
Yeah.
feel that. I felt like I was connected to all these people. Even the street people. Everybody had this halo and the light.
Yeah. I mean, everybody does, but just the last thing I've been talking a lot, but I just want to say if people,
Well, you're the guest.
people
You're
at
supposed
home, if people at home want to investigate past lives, there are a couple really good books. Many Lives, Many Masters by a psychiatrist who was dabbling in hypnotherapy, and as he began to regress people in hypnotism, he began to do accidentally past life regression, and in this past life regression, he was able to cure neuroses symptoms in this life by addressing previous incarnations traumas.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've heard.
Many Lives, Many Masters, Weiss. Yeah.
What do you think about this quote? I heard somebody say that consider the past destiny, but the future free will.
Yeah. 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 I mean, it also goes into a very deep Kabbalistic principle that how, the rabbis throughout the ages have asked, how can it be that both free will and predetermination coexist? And the answer is that we cannot understand the mind of God, that there is total free will. We are unscripted in one certain sense, and yet because we are loved so deeply, we cannot understand a mind that knows exactly what we will do.
Well, I think
We can't understand the depth of that love. Yeah.
Well, I think God is definitely a woman,
Yeah.
because I see the women being better than men, and I see women giving life and having the life force, and I think for writing this book about relationships, I come to this conclusion that if God exists, it's a woman. If it has a sex, if it has a gender, it's
Yeah.
female.
Do you know, I
Am I right, Beth?
I was going, yeah, I was reading a book.
I was thinking it was a
and
dog.
Probably.
in the book, they were talking about, you have to relax. And they were talking about God the Father. Okay, they
Yeah.
were making an analogy. And I thought to myself, how could I relax God the Father? And then it hit me. It's like, oh, you mean a good father.
Yeah. Right.
You know,
Yeah,
a father
benevolent
who's got
father.
my best interests at heart.
Yeah.
That's
Our father
what
who's
you're
not an
talking about.
asshole in heaven. Hell, yeah, is his name.
Well, you know what? That's what hit me in that book. I don't remember which book that was. That was when I was still living upstairs from my mother, and I needed a lot of reading.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, do you think that moment where you saw the halos and the interconnectedness was your sudden recognition of noticing energy?
Well, it's an whatever it is, it's an energy. This thing that connects everybody. But then I started, you know, I was reading The Art of Joyful Living, and it's by Rama somebody or other. And then I was reading the Bible at the same time. So those two things converged. Oh, and the one quote in The Art of Joyful Living is, "There's no difference between the painter and the painting." So I was working on that thought for a long time, thinking about that, and thinking to myself, okay, everything we've created is part of us. And I bought that, and then I extrapolated backwards, and I said, wait a minute. So we are part of this creation, and everything that comes from us is it's like a line. It's linear, and I was like, I was blown away. And that's right around that time is when I saw that light thing, and it did profoundly impact on the way I looked at other people and kindness, forgiveness, caring, yeah.
Which spirituality comes down to.
Instead of being angry, because I had a lot of anger. So instead of being angry, I turned it around and I said, everybody is something's happening in everybody's life, and I have to be kind.
Kenny, can I ask you a question about when you were working so much as a child? Did you have a sense of accomplishment and there was no joy
workaholic.
in Mudville in that job
Workaholic.
there? Yeah. And it took you away and out of the familial experience that was
once died.
What-
It just changed everything in me.
Was your family
Literally.
business? It was a family business?
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because I look at that and I see like there is something in you that wants to express itself in work. Rumi says we're each desired for a specific kind of work, and the desire for that work has been placed in our heart. But what happens is when we are driven or forced to do things repetitively over time, that gets drowned out. And so we lose contact with what we're really supposed to be doing.
Yeah, that
and
makes
that's why
sense.
hopelessness takes its place. Yeah.
there's a Kahlil Gibran quote that doubt is too lonely an emotion to know that faith is its twin brother.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's funny because Paula, when you were describing that examination, that scrutiny, the meticulous spiritual investigation, I was thinking in Buddhist terms of a koan. A koan is a Buddhist question. It's an illogical question,
Yeah.
which breaks apart discursive logic and opens you up to the sheer presence of being, the moment.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you had an awakening through this examination of a koan.
Yeah.
That wasn't an official koan, but your own koan.
But
yeah.
right, it was something in the book. I was taking it was a philosophy class at the Himalayan Institute,
Yeah.
which I highly recommend. It's a great place to learn yoga and to learn meditation, and so that class was. In fact, I gave that book to what's his name, the guy that comes here all the time. He was-
James Walker?
No, not James Walker. the
Jim
guy-
Prey?
Jim Prey. I gave it to Jim Prey because I thought it would help him, but I don't think he ever was able to read it or connect with it.
Well, he's more of a sports guy.
Yeah, but anyway, that was a really
He is.
good book to
He
read.
probably said, "What is this? It is not
Are there-
sports.
are there-
No statistics
It's not
in
about
this.
no statistics, and it's not about baseball in 1961. What?
Are there any?
I don't.
Yeah. Is
I
there
don't think I can get anything out of this.
sports? Yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, so I feel good about that thing now. But like I said, for a couple of years before I read that Thomas Merton thing, I didn't talk to anybody about it.
Yeah.
It scared me because I have a sister who is mentally ill, or
Yeah.
she's passed now. But
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
I'm feeling like we've really touched base on a couple of points that it's how a child is brought up helps them get to the point where they can help emotionally satisfy a woman.
Correct.
And emotionally satisfy a man,
Right.
whoever your partner is.
Right.
And there is resilience in the human soul.
Yeah.
That's because I think our drive for love, because we have love to give, is always going to help us get to the next level, so that we can continually do that ripple effect of spreading love in the world, and it doesn't hurt.
So you think that your childhood affects how your marriage now?
I think it's sure, everything like that does.
Okay, because I definitely think it has. I've been trying to get, like I said earlier, I'm trying to get away from Pat and Jim, my parents, and be like the way I should be with Paula, which is nice and
Yeah,
kind.
I have learned a lot from Greg about
Yes.
about friendships and relationships.
Yes, I'm a
Because-
guru.
Because
That's the whole point of the show.
my whole life I spent telling people I didn't need them. I don't need you. You want to go? Go.
Yeah.
I don't need you. I am independent.
Right.
And, I mean, that
Now you're-
doesn't make
now you're
people
codependent with me.
feel good. But I learned how to not be like that. But there's a lot of things I was doing wrong. Because I thought, if they want a relationship with me, I don't want them to think that I'm trying to get anything out of them. Like you're not supposed to get something out of a relationship. I mean, it's bad. But not only that. I mean, there's just so many details of, just if I acted crazy, Greg would calmly sit me down and he'd say that was crazy and it upset me, and I'd
Brilliant.
have to
Thank
look.
you.
I'd have to look
I'm a
at
brilliant
that,
teacher, and i.e. a guru.
and I'd say, why did I act crazy? And then I'd have to think about it, and I'd
Yeah.
have to do some research.
Well, I mean, we've done this for both of us have done this for each other. We've done the classic functioned as a pop therapist for the other person, or made actually a therapist for the other person.
Yeah.
So that's important, I think.
Yeah, but
Sounding board.
You've
Sounding
always
board.
You've always had
Hopefully
a lot of women
non-judgmental,
friends.
too.
Yeah.
I've always had a lot
Right.
of women friends. What?
And hopefully a non-judgmental.
Oh yeah,
sounding board.
non-judgmental. Not judging the person, but trying to get to what's going on and why you're feeling this way, and then vice versa.
But what you're describing is a basic principle anyone can use in counseling, psychodynamic, psychotherapeutic techniques. Essentially, what Paul just described you were doing is cognitive behavioral therapy.
That's what I'm known for, because I'm a guru.
Yeah.
Cognitive behavioral therapy.
Well, I'm lucky to know you, Greg.
And soon
are
to
lucky,
write
and I'm
a
lucky to
book
know you,
about
Joel.
How to raise a child.
Yeah, I'm going to definitely do the second book about how to be a good parent and raise a child correctly so that they can emotionally
I
satisfy
think you
their
can
partner.
do this, Craig.
You know what?
No,
You
it's
could
a great
just-
idea,
you could
Beth.
just
I
write-
just had to wrap my mind around it. It's not about talking about my parents. It's about talking about the ideal parents
Yeah.
who would raise a child
Right.
properly.
Yeah.
You could talk about our neighbors.
Yeah, the neighbors would be one aspect of it. Yes, because they're good and they're caring and they're wonderful
Yeah,
parents.
They are.
It takes a village.
It does take a village, Hillary.
To not just raise a child, but to help your adult friends.
Yeah, sure, and it also it takes a village to not be a misogynist, male chauvinist pig too. That's what I've learned. All these male chauvinist pigs and misogynists, I've learned that they can be helped by a village. It needs a whole fucking village. It needs a team of psychiatrists
So
around
they
the
will
clock.
tie them down
24
like in
on a railroad
Gulliver's,
tracks.
Gulliver's Travels.
Yeah, Culver's Travel, and stick pins in them.
I don't think so.
Well, sometimes you got to fight fire with fire. Am I wrong?
Well, then everything's just going to burn down.
But still, I mean, sometimes you have to burn everything down metaphorically, Beth, to
And
get to
rise like a phoenix
from the
again?
ashes. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's. I mean, I just feel like the only thing that can make life better that I can help out with is to just get rid of all this negativity from males towards females. There's just too much not seeing them as people, seeing them as sex objects, not seeing them for who they really are, not being kind and courteous and gentle with them. Too much male chauvinist pig, macho behavior, toxic stuff, and too much patriarchal bullshit. And I think if we just can get the men to be more sensitive and caring, we could really change the world.
But you have to have a logical woman who's in that.
Oh, yeah, you want a
relationship,
logical,
too.
reasonable woman.
You don't want somebody like the
No, logical, reasonable
situation-
woman. No,
you know.
logical, reasonable woman, of course. And I have to say that even though Tosca wasn't here, this episode 3 was great. Beth did a great job as the host. Fantastic job. You know, I kind of had the feeling the way you were sitting there in a chair and asking questions. You were like doing a group therapy with the four of us. You're like a group therapist.
What a lovely compliment. Thank you.
If you watch this back, you're going to see you're a group therapist.
Yeah, you did a great
11,
job.
10.
I'm a bartender, so
Oh,
right,
yeah,
right.
that's true.
From bartender
years of
experience.
experience. Yeah. Thank
Works
you,
for
everybody,
therapy.
for coming to the Greg Sturlace How to
Goodbye.
Emotionally Satisfy the Woman.